Guys, Whitney from the Holiday Homestead here. I am doing a video, I guess another butchering video, on how to butcher quail. So I've had quite a few questions about the quail raising and processing, harvesting, all that. So, and normally I would just teach a class on it. I teach classes here on our property, but I have not gotten the time to actually sit down and schedule a class. So, for all those people who have been asking, here is a video on how to do it. Yay. And especially for Serena, I did not forget. I just haven't been able to schedule it. Anyway, so here we go. So of course, we raise Corchenix quail. They're a Japanese breed that are basically just bred for meat production. They're very meaty. They have a nice. I mean, they're small, of course. They're quail. They're not the size of like a guinea Cornish game hen or something. But for quail and for the size that they actually are quite meaty. There are jumbo versions that you can get, like different breeds and varieties. We stuck with the Corchenix because they're just very dependable, cold weather hardy. They just are wonderful. That's not to say that other breeds aren't, but we like these ones. Um, so when we started raising them for meat, we had to decide how we wanted to process them. The traditional method is to basically hold the bird like a soda can, and with your other hand pop the head off with your thumb, just like pick it right off. Um, I'm not quite there yet. So I use a different method, which is scissors. Um, and so basically, yeah, you just cut the head right off. It does seem kind of gruesome, but honestly, it is the quickest method, and it's a very clean, quick death for the animal and a very clean way to process them. And then from there, so after the head is off, then we're talking, okay, feather removal. There are many ways to do it. I will show you kind of the hardest way to do it because that's how I started out doing mine, which is to dry pluck. It is not, and when I say hardest, it really is not that hard. It is simply just pulling the feathers off, and on quail, especially when they're young, within the, I'd say 8 to 10 weeks old, the feathers come off super easily. So it's not difficult at all, but it is, of course, makes all the feather kind of mess everywhere. Um, the by far the quickest and easiest method is if you have a plucker. We do have a chicken plucker. I think it's a Yardbird brand. I borrowed it from a friend. It was really cool. I gave her some stuff. She gave me the plucker. It was pretty awesome. Anyway, and so that does work for quail. I was told before that if you put a quail in a chicken plucker, it shreds up the quail and makes this horrible mess of the bird, and it's just not edible anymore. But I decided to try it, and sure enough, it really doesn't. It does not ruin the meat at all. If you leave it in there for too long, then yes, it will. So you kind of have to be a little bit mindful, about how long you leave the bird in there. But you really don't have to leave it very long. You can just sit there and watch that all the feathers get pulled off and it comes right out, or you take it out. So that is the plucker method. But I'm not going to do that this time. I'm going to show you the dry pluck method because I feel like not everybody has a plucker. And if you don't, you definitely still can harvest quail effectively for meat. So having a plucker or not having a plucker, that's not a deal breaker as far as raising Corchenix quail or any other quail for meat production. So that being said, let's get this bird processed. I personally do not feel comfortable showing the actual dispatchment of the animal, so I'll do that off camera. But we'll. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory, honestly, and I'll kind of show you how it's done, and then we'll just go from there. Okay, so we have our quail. And you want to get a firm hold on them. So I've got, feet sticking out the bottom here. I've got the wings firmly under my hand with just the head poking out. And so the scissors are going to go right here under like the back of his head, basically, with enough space to complete the snip all the way through. You don't want to come in like here trying to snip. That's not a good thing. You want to make sure your scissors are all the way across and are going to cut off the head entirely. That's how you know for sure that the animal is completely not there. So let's do that. All right. Now, generally what I do with the quail is I hold them. So it's still going to move a bit. If you've ever dispatched a chicken, you'll know the chicken kind of goes through the little flaps and flails. It's just nerve endings and nerve muscle spasms and stuff. The animal is not feeling anything at that point. Um, and so, which is another reason why I prefer the I guess decapitation method, because I know for a fact the animal is not feeling anything. It's just the muscles in the body just kind of moving in response to a shock, basically. All right, so when I'm butchering quail, scissors are the only method or only tool that I use for the entire process. So whether it's dispatching, which is now done, or working through the entrails and getting all that out, all I use is scissors. So here we go. Okay, so um, sorry, I've got like neighbors' dogs coming around here. It's freaking me out. This happens every time I butcher. All right, so the next process here is to pluck the bird. So we're gonna start pulling the feathers off, and literally all we're doing here is just taking the feathers and just pulling. And they come right off very easily. So if you can see, I'll show you. If you can see, there's the breast of the animal, of the bird. And so you just take and you just pull gently and they come right off. It's very simple and it's very easy. It doesn't take a lot of extra force. If you are pulling really hard, you can rip the skin. The skin of these quail is very tender and very soft. So when you're pulling, get a small, let's see, maybe that's 10 feathers, and just pull. You can pull them in the direction of the feather follicle. I don't know what the term is, but you can pull with the grain, I guess. You can pull with the grain down, or you can pull against the grain up. Either way, you're going to get those feathers off. And with just a few little clumps, there you go. See, already you've started to see bare skin. So I go pretty quickly with this because I've done it so much. Oh my goodness. Before we got the plucker, this was the only method that we had for harvesting our quail. And so basically we just made it a family affair. We would do, we would sit around, I'd put the radio on, sit around outside in the shade somewhere and dispatch quail and then just start plucking. And everybody just grabs a bird and start plucking, even the kids, because I mean the kids weren't that good at it, but my theory was all the feathers need to come off. So even if you only pull off 5, that's still fewer feathers than I have to pull off. So hey, you're helping. So so yeah, you can very easily make this kind of a fun family event if that's how you want to go with it. We try to involve our children in most, if not all, of the processes here. Um, we do obviously harvesting our larger animals. We do with guns, so you know that's a bit more of hands off for the kids. But as far as like little things like carrying the meat up to the house or something, or oh gosh, hosing off something. I'll get the hose and wash off the meat or something. Those are things that kids can do. that is, I mean, safe. You know, they're not handling firearms or anything else, but you know, it's safe, but it's also helps them to understand the process. I've had a lot of questions about how we, I guess, explain it to our kids. Um, Sorry, how we explain it to our kids about, you know, harvesting the animals and raising the animals, and then, oh, they're so cute, and then, oh, next thing you know, they're on our table. And basically, we, you know, teach them that harvesting an animal is the purpose for that animal, and also it is, you know, supposed to be done in a way that the animal doesn't suffer, of course, but also, you know, it's us participating in a cycle. You know, everything has a cycle, and even, I mean, people have a cycle. We live and we die, and we have a purpose on this earth. And the same thing is true for animals. They have a purpose on this earth. And anyway, so, you know, everyone has their own ways of looking at it. And, you know, different religions and stuff have different kind of theories behind it. But basically, we just make sure our children understand that harvesting an animal is something that is not to be taken lightly. It is the animal's death, but it's also fulfilling the animal's purpose for us. And you know, we try to give them a good, happy life while they are on the earth and while we're here. And then happy life and a very quick, painless death. So that is the goal. So anyway, so that's a little kind of synopsis of how we help our kids understand it. And I mean, so far so good. The kids eat the meat, you know. They also play with the bunnies. I mean, they have no problems kind of putting that distinction between the two. Every once in a while, if I feel like they're getting too kind of attached, I'll remind them, you know, hey, this bunny isn't for pets, you know. We don't name them. We don't get super attached because, you know, this bunny's going to come and go. And it's the same thing with our quail. It's not as much of a problem with our poultry. I think because they're not quite as, like, you know, cute and fuzzy. But you know, the kids either way kind of have to um, have a perspective on it that is healthy. And the same thing when we go hunting. You know, it's the same idea. It's that the animal's death is not something, you know, fun or woohoo, look what I got. You know, it's harvesting a resource that we need and that we're grateful to have. And we certainly don't trophy hunt. We don't, you know, go looking for the biggest and the best. We look for what the Lord sends our way, and we take that, and we are grateful for it. So, um, so as you can see here, I'm kind of making progress on this bird. If I wasn't talking, it'd go a little faster, but usually it's pretty quick. Anyway, but you can see there's a few little pen feathers here, but for the most part, you know, we've got skin, and we just keep going. I'm applying relatively very little force here to get the wings or the feathers and stuff off. The feathers right along the breasts can be very very loose and soft, and then the feathers further down on the hips and into the thighs and stuff can be a little bit tougher to get. And by tougher, I just mean they kind of stick in the skin a little bit more, but still very easy to pull out, relatively speaking. Um, okay, so you can see here, you want to get everything off the thighs right down to the joint there. So you just keep going. And then of course you want to get the, as my kids call it, the butt feathers. When they're plucking, sometimes they get tired. They say, do I have to pluck the butt feathers? And I tell them, well, don't pluck the feathers you want to eat. and they usually do a better job. Okay. All right. So that's basically the bird. This is the crop. We're going to get rid of that. This one is a little bit younger than some of our other birds, our other quail that we have in the pen. I just grabbed it because it was a male, because we usually let our egg-laying females hang out a little bit longer to lay more eggs. I mean, they're unfertilized, of course, but they people want them. We trade them for all kinds of stuff. So we do a lot of bartering, especially with fancy stuff people like. All right, so there's a bird. So I always snip off the wings because there's really hardly any meat on the wings. When I'm using my plucker, I will keep the wings on, because when you put them in the plucker, you don't want to have any like ripped skin or cut skin, because it tends to get stuck in the plucker really easily and kind of rips open from there, you know. When you put them in a plucker, you want to make sure that everything is basically intact. I mean, obviously the head's going to be off, unless you break the necks, which some people do. But when you put them in the plucker, you want the animal to be as intact as possible, because it gets really, really shredded up if there's a lot of cut skin already there. So here we go. So now I've taken off the wings. There's that. Don't need those. And then we're going to work on the entrails. Now, I should say, I haven't gotten every feather off that I normally would get off, but just for the sake of time, because I'm doing a video, I'm making it pretty quick. So, all right. So the next cut, let's see if I can get a little closer in here. So the next cut is going to be right at the base of the breastbone. So the breastbone comes down here, and you're going to cut right under there. There's like a little hook right there. This is the kind of the butt parts there. So there's a hook right in there. So you just take your scissors and just snip, snip, and snip. So Dallin, shh, I'm filming. So now that part is open. There's a little cut there. You don't have to cut all the way through, because this part is the gizzard and the entrails and stuff. So you don't want to go too like deep in there. You just want to cut the skin open. And you can actually see a little bit of breast meat right there. It's pretty good. Anyway, so then you flip the thing over. Now you have the butt facing you. You're just going to cut on either side of the butt. So like a V shape there and a V shape on that side. Like, and so we're just going to go. And then you take your, sorry, that's my cat. You take your scissors at the top and cut that. That's the spine attached to like the tail and all that. So you cut right through that. So then you take your scissors and just kind of push it down. Don't hit. You don't have to cut necessarily, but you're just pushing it down enough to make some space for your scissors. So now, feathers on it. Now, take the scissors and you're going to go up the spine and just go straight up. And you can go like right up into the rest of the bird. So you're just going to go up. And I like to kind of open my scissors a little bit. You don't want to close them in there because you'll cut it. But so close when you go up, and you just kind of wiggle it in, open it up a little bit. Kind of get yourself some space. That's basically what you're doing. So now you're taking the bottom part of the scissors, and you're going to cut along the spine. So the spine from the neck is straight down, and you just cut. And the bones on quail are so thin that it does not take a lot of force to cut them. So now you've got the spine open, So basically you got like the open back, and you can remove any clumps of feathers or anything. So now you go along the sides. This is the lungs here. You can scrape that down. And I like to kind of just open the scissors just a little bit, not a whole bunch, just enough to kind of make like a little V shape. And I just kind of go along, almost like using forks. And I just kind of part stuff and just kind of scrape the lung out there. And the same thing, just leave it open just a little bit, and you kind of go along the edges, and you're just kind of removing stuff. We're not really cutting anything at this point, we're just separating it from the rest of the body of the quail. Okay, so now, and this is where you get your hands a little messy, so, you know, if that's what you're worried about, maybe put some gloves on. I come here, and I take my scissors, and I go from one side to the other, right? This is the esophagus, and this is the trachea together with lungs on either side. And all you do is take your thumb, lay it against your scissors, and gently pull. And everything from crop to anus, or egg vent, comes right out. There's the crop, there's the egg vent. And then I just snip that skin. This is the little kind of butt skin right around where we had it, and done. So now the back is cleaned out. If there's any little organs or anything you left in there, just scrape them out real quick. But pretty much that is clean. And now for the front, you have your bird. Then I would take the feet, and I just cut just above. And and that is one cleaned out, dressed, ready for the kitchen quail. There we go. And like I said, you know, these are small. I mean, it's not going to be like a big Cornish game hen where it's all these big breasts and all that. It's a smaller size. So what you're going to get out of this is one portion of meat for an adult. So for our family of 6, we have 4 children, and me and my husband, I cook 4 quail. And so that's one for me, one for my husband, one whole one for me and my husband. And then each kid gets a half of one. So they get a half split down the middle, a breast and a leg for each one of them. And that is plenty of meat. We have been eating like that for, oh gosh, like 2 years now. And, you know, that's been plenty. We've never, sometimes we'll have leftovers every now and then even. So it just depends. But yeah, so that is basically one meal right there. And the breasts on these quail is very deep. So when you're cooking them, you'll notice the breastbone here is rather thin and pointy, and it goes straight down, you know, obviously to the rib cage. But this is almost all meat. So that's a good little, like, you know, palm size amount of meat. Plus, each thigh and leg, it's small, sure, but it's meaty, and it's I think it's delicious. This is our favorite. This is my favorite meat. My husband's favorite meat is rabbit, I think, but this is my favorite because it's just very very juicy and tender, and really good. Anyway, so one thing that I do with my quail, and I will say, once you're done dressing the quail, I usually have a little like a little bucket, something with a lid, and I just put the quail in there and then cover it. Some people don't cover it with water. I usually cover it with water just to help some of the blood start to get out, because there is still a little bit of blood in the tissues. I like to make sure that's not drying, but actually like getting liquidy and coming out. So anyway, so there's that. So that quail is done. I will also show you, so this is another thing I do with my quail. I can my quail, and this is 3 quail in one wide mouth quart-sized jar, and this would be, you know, a decent meal. This is what like if I would put it in a soup, or I would put it in at the very end of like a stir fry. The thing about canning meat, especially poultry, is it does get very soft when you process it in a jar. So I wouldn't, if I was cooking with this, I wouldn't add it to my stir fry with the vegetables, because as the vegetables are cooking, this is going to break down into kind of a mush. What I would do is Don't spray anything. What I would do is shred this and add it at the very end of the cooking process so that it just gets a chance to absorb some of that juice and flavor and whatever and just be part of the meal. That's the only, don't spray. That's the only thing that I would say about canning quail. But other than that, it is really easy to work with and it's really good. And I love that it is preserved without any kind of freezer or refrigerator or anything else. It is a self-contained meal. It's pretty cool. Anyway, so yeah, guys, that's basically it. Processing quail normally, if I'm not talking and making a video and wrangling kids, the process takes about 6 minutes per bird if I'm plucking by hand. If I have a plucker, it takes almost under a minute between quickly scald, throw it in, undo it, or take all the feathers off, and then come and open the back, pull out the innards, and clip them off, and you're done. I would say maybe less than 2 minutes. I'll give myself that. 2 minutes. Um, it's very quick. So anyway, that's basically why we raise quail. They grow out in 8 weeks, and they're on the plate really easily. Anyway, so I hope this video helps, and I hope it encourages you guys to raise quail. They're amazing birds. They're incredibly easy to raise and to feed and to harvest. Yeah, it's a wonderful adventure doing it. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. And Serena, I hope this helps. Thank you so much. Bye, guys.